Clarity is absolutely essential within each of us. Because in just a few seconds, if your mind is truly awake, you will realize that you are living inside a maze designed to make you forget who you really are. Once you begin to understand this, you will stop yearning to belong to places that don't deserve you. You will stop explaining yourself to those who only seek to misunderstand. You will no longer trade your inner peace for fleeting approval or harm your own mind just to become a pleasant version of yourself in others' eyes. You will see the trap clear and unmasked. An emotional system designed to distract you, to keep you obedient and easy to control. But the moment you pause, when your mind grows quiet and clear, you become a real threat. Because clarity shatters all manipulation. It exposes empty promises, relationships built on fear, and affections that exist only for show. Ask yourself, how many of your choices are truly your own? How much of what you believe comes from your own conscious decision, rather than being implanted in your mind by others since childhood? This is not just about thinking more. It's about thinking more clearly, without emotional distortion, without being led by noise. This is the essence of Stoicism, not coldness, but disciplined truth. It is the courage to dismantle all illusions until your mind is fully back under your control. If you are tired of constantly reacting to the world, this is the moment to reclaim mastery within yourself. Step away from the noise, the crowds, and return to your true self. That is where real change begins. And if you are on a journey to awaken, to find freedom in your mind, subscribe to this channel. Together, we will learn to live awake, think clearly, and become genuinely strong. They don't want you truly awake. Because in just one moment, if your mind is fully clear, you will see how everything slowly erodes your soul. The world is designed to keep you busy, so busy that you forget to truly live. When you start to see clearly, you will stop seeking acceptance from those who don't understand you. You will stop explaining, stop trying to please, and stop trading your inner peace for hollow nods of approval. You will no longer distort yourself just to fit the mold society has imposed. You will stop torturing your mind to become the perfect version in someone else's eyes. Instead, you will see the bigger picture, a sophisticated trap woven from emotions, expectations, and fear, keeping you predictable, obedient, and exhausted. But what they don't tell you is this: the moment you pause and think, everything changes. When you step back, when your mind becomes calm, a new power emerges. The power of awareness, of clarity, which makes you dangerous to any system that seeks to control you. Because clarity is the light that burns away all illusions. It exposes manipulation, unmasks false loyalties, and dissolves performative affections. Ask yourself, how many of your life choices come from your true heart? How much of what you do is inherited, imposed, or expected by others? Are you living for yourself, or just reacting to everything around you? Stoicism doesn't teach you to become cold or detached. It teaches you to see the truth without being consumed by it. It is the art of discipline of the mind, the journey of stripping away each layer of illusion, each false belief, until you reach your true essence, where every thought and decision truly belongs to you. If you are tired of constantly running after the world's noise, if you are exhausted from living in reaction rather than taking action, then this is the moment to awaken, to begin reclaiming mastery of your mind. Because only when you think clearly can you truly live. And if you want to go deeper on this journey, where we learn to stay silent amidst chaos, calm amidst turmoil, subscribe to this channel. We will learn together to see, understand, and become free from within. Let it be a quiet revolution, a silent promise to the future version of yourself that you have chosen clarity over chaos, discipline over distraction, and an independent mind unmanipulated by anyone or anything in silence. Most people believe they are thinking, but in reality, they are just reacting. Reacting to emotions, to public opinion, to the noise around them quickly, unconsciously, and almost completely uncontrolled. The difference between real thought and reaction may seem small, but it is the line between freedom and mental slavery. Because real thinking is intentional. It is built on observation, testing, reflection, and conscious choice, whereas reaction is only the result of habit, fear, and unexamined memories. Many believe they are awake, but they are merely replaying emotional scripts. Someone says something disagreeable, and you immediately become defensive. An opportunity arises, and you feel anxious. Then try to avoid it. You call it caution, wisdom, strategic thinking. But if you look closely, you will see it is not a conscious choice, but a reflex disguised as thinking. We live in an age where speed is worshipped over depth. Everything must be fast reactions, fast conclusions, fast decisions. And in all that rush, we lose the pause, the very moment where true wisdom is born. But clarity is never found in chaos. A clear mind does not race against time. It knows how to stop, observe, and ask questions. Try asking yourself, where is this emotion coming from? What am I believing here that might not be true? Whose voice am I really listening to in my head, and is it even mine? Most people never ask themselves these questions. They let old voices run their lives. The voice of parents they once tried to please, the crowd they feared rejection from, the beliefs planted in childhood that they never paused to examine. And so their minds slowly become a chaotic stage where other people's stories are replayed endlessly, while their own true story is left forgotten in silence. But you don't have to live that way. You can reclaim ownership of your mind. You can choose to observe rather than react, to understand rather than judge, and to remain silent rather than get swept up in the noise. This is the essence of modern Stoicism, a journey back to yourself, where you learn to remain calm amidst chaos and to think proactively rather than reactively. Let stillness become your greatest rebellion, because the moment you truly begin to think consciously, the world will no longer easily control you. Stoics do not view emotions as the enemy. They understand that emotions are signals, not problems. What truly causes suffering is not what we feel, but the stories we tell ourselves about what we feel. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you that causes suffering, but your judgment about it." It may sound simple, but within it lies a fierce kind of freedom, because if we are the creators of our own suffering, then only we can free ourselves from it. What does that mean? It means that before we can change our emotions, we must face their source. We must pause long enough to ask, why do I feel this way? Where is this emotion coming from? What belief is driving it? Most people never do this. They get angry and believe someone has hurt them. They feel shame and believe they are unworthy. They feel fear and believe the world is threatening them. But these emotions don't appear randomly. They stem from deeply held beliefs, and if those beliefs are false, the emotions are merely illusions, rationalized by the mind. Someone who believes they are weak sees danger everywhere. Someone who believes they are not good enough feels shame, even when no one judges them. And someone who believes others must change for their peace will live forever in disappointment. Stoicism teaches emotions are not bad, only misunderstood. Emotions are dangerous. You don't need to eliminate emotions, you need to be slow enough to see where they come from. In today's world, where everything happens at lightning speed, most people never stop to truly see. They react constantly to the news, social media, other people, and even to the stories they construct in their own minds. Then they call it life. But the truth is, it's just an endless loop of unchecked emotions. Repeated anger, old regrets, and false beliefs painted over with valid reasons. Day after day, they do not live, they merely react. Stoics do not try to suppress emotions, they learn to listen to them. Because beneath every anger, every fear, every shame, there is always a belief waiting to be seen. And when you see it clearly, the emotion loses its power. When you recognize the root, it no longer drags you down. That is when you begin to touch true freedom, a freedom no one can give you, found only through understanding yourself. If you have never seen the roots of your reactions, how can you trust that your choices are truly your own? Pause and reflect. How many times have you said yes, not because you wanted to, but because you were afraid of disappointing someone? How many decisions have you made just to avoid temporary discomfort? How many times have you stayed silent not because you agreed, but out of fear of judgment or rejection? That is not freedom. It is survival, disguised as kindness. When fear drives your actions, you are no longer choosing, you are merely reacting to survive. And if you repeat this long enough, those reactions become your identity. You think you're calm, but in reality, you've only learned to swallow your anger to stay safe. You think you lack decisiveness, but what's really happening is that you've equated discomfort with danger. You think you're in control of yourself, but in truth, you've muted your own voice to avoid being disliked. That is not peace. That is the domestication of emotion. And when you live this way long enough, you lose the ability to distinguish between what you truly want and what others expect from you. So, what does real thinking look like? It is not pleasant, smooth, or comfortable. It is tense, like standing still while everyone else is running. It is the mind resisting old habits. It is the moment you pause amidst automatic reactions and dare to ask, why do I feel this way? What is truly driving my behavior? Real thinking requires courage to face not the world, but yourself. Not the liked or pleasant version of you you've created, but the real person who still carries wounds, still fears pain, still tenses to appear okay. You have to be brave enough to look in the mirror of your mind and see clearly why someone easily triggers your anger, why you avoid a conversation, why you keep falling into the same loop even when you know better. This is when clarity begins to sprout. Not when you control everything, but when you pause and stop blaming the world for your emotions. You begin to understand. Every reaction is a message. It is not the enemy, but a mirror reflecting what remains unhealed within you. And when you dare to face it not with self-punishment, but with the intention to free yourself, you begin to reclaim the control you once lost. This is the essence of inner freedom. Not the absence of emotion, but understanding it enough not to be controlled by it. Not numbness, but clarity. Because when you understand the root of a reaction, you no longer live in fear, you begin to live with awareness. Once you realize that your initial reaction is not the end but the starting point, you've taken a crucial step toward regaining mastery of your mind. You are no longer a victim of emotion, no longer pulled by unconscious reactions formed from habit, past wounds, or old fears. From that moment, instinct no longer dictates your actions. You begin consciously choosing how to respond to the world. When you learn to pause between stimulus and reaction, a small but invaluable space opens where you can see clearly what is truly happening inside. In that space, reason returns, and discernment, the inner wisdom Stoics call practical intelligence, begins to speak. But it does not shout. It does not urge you to react immediately. It whispers, gently inviting you to observe your emotions rather than be enslaved by them. It tells you to sit with discomfort, not to push it away or run. Look it squarely in the face and ask, where is this feeling coming from? What belief is guiding me right now? Gradually, you realize that the mind is not a battlefield where you must win or lose, but a terrain to understand, to explore yourself. This is the spirit of Stoicism, not extinguishing emotions, but understanding their nature. It is seeing the truth behind anger, fear, or pain. It is accepting that the first impulse is usually instinctive, not intelligent. Impulse can be strong, but it is rarely right. Clear thinking demands patience and courage, pausing, breathing, observing. Feel how your body tenses, how your heartbeat races, whether your mind wants to flee or confront. Only when you can stand still amid that storm does your response become a deliberate choice, no longer a reflex. This is not an easy journey. It is long, sometimes exhausting. But through this training, you gradually reclaim the freedom most people have lost, the right to choose how to respond to life. And that is the true power Stoicism wants you to discover. It is difficult to turn around and face the truth when your whole life has been woven from avoidance. When every reflex, word, and action seems designed to hide insecurity, acknowledging the truth with yourself becomes painful and rare. But each time you recognize that you are running on autopilot and truly mark that moment, you build an unshakable inner foundation. Instead of waiting for the world to change to feel safe, you begin to make yourself the source of clarity amidst chaos. You do not need the whole world to shift for you to feel secure. You become the one carrying a quiet, steadfast light of awareness. This clarity is not a hollow intellectual exercise. It is a subtle power, gentle, humble, yet solid as stone. It does not shout. It does not seek attention. It exists as a grounding center, calming the chaos around you. So the next time you feel a reactive impulse, want to defend yourself, or shrink back, pause, ask yourself, does this really come from me, or is it inherited? Is this truth, or just an old habit? Just a single moment of silence, a small gap between stimulus and action, can determine whether you repeat the old pattern or write a new chapter. Stoic discernment gives you a simple but profound power. The ability to respond rather than be driven by reaction. The ability to choose rather than merely comply. The ability to think rather than be ruled by emotion. When practiced consistently, your life transforms from a chain of unconscious reflexes into a map drawn and navigated by you. Clear thinking doesn't just help you make wiser decisions, it turns you into someone who doesn't need rescuing from yourself. In a noisy, distracting world, that is a rare and precious kind of freedom. Pay attention, and you'll notice the biggest changes always begin in the small, silent moments within. Sometimes, something brushes against you, a feeling hard to name, like a tiny electric current running through your mind. An invisible pull, a flash of light, urging you to act before you even fully understand what's happening. It might be a powerful attraction to someone. It might be a mix of excitement and anxiety. Or sometimes, it's the thrill you hastily call destiny. The strange thing is that these emotions always come first, loud, urgent, flooding your body like a wave. In that moment, reason is only a follower, chasing after the feeling with one task: rationalize what the heart has already decided. You tell yourself, this feels right. There must be some meaning here. But is it truly deep intuition, or just a reflex disguised as intelligence? Pause and ask yourself, is this familiar feeling really truth, or just the repetition of old memories, wounds that were never healed? There's a paradox in human nature. We often feel safe in pain. We know. The pain we understand can sometimes feel more comfortable than the new, unfamiliar challenges we've never faced. So we unconsciously return to the same types of people, situations, and emotions, not because they're right, but because they feel like home. You might think you're feeling with your soul, but in reality, you're reacting with memory. Strong feelings are not always signs of truth. Sometimes, they are echoes from the past lessons you haven't fully learned. Awareness begins when you're brave enough to ask, why am I drawn to this? Is what I'm feeling coming from the present or from the past? Is this the voice of instinct or the habit of an unhealed mind? Once you start asking these questions, you break the cycle. You're no longer a puppet of fleeting emotions. You become your own observer, and that is the first step toward wisdom. When you stop being led by feelings and start guiding them. Sometimes, you feel a powerful energy around an opportunity, as if you don't seize it now, you'll lose something forever. That feeling convinces you it's intuition, a call of destiny. But if you pause long enough, you realize it's not insight, it's fear of missing out, masquerading as opportunity. Fear operates cleverly. It doesn't push you away. It pulls you closer. It whispers, if you don't act now, you'll regret it. And so you jump in not because it's right, but because you fear being left behind. In that moment, reason stops resisting. It becomes an accomplice. It puts on the mask called rationality, weaving a story that seems logical, just to help you avoid the discomfort inside. This happens in love, in work, even in choices that seem trivial. In love, you may think you've found the one, but sometimes it's just temporary relief. Someone sees you, cares for you, makes you feel worthy. And so you cling to the relationship, not because it's healthy, but because you fear losing that attention, like a thirsty person clutching the last drop of dew. At work, a tempting offer arrives. Your heart races, your stomach tightens. You call it excitement, but if you're honest, it's scarcity, the fear that an opportunity like this may never come again. You tell yourself, this is a turning point. This is what I must do. But it's not a turning point of courage, it's a turning point of panic. Look closely, and you'll see. Most decisions you regret don't come from stupidity or lack of reason. They come from loyalty to unexamined emotions. You feel something and believe it's true. You let emotion steer while reason sits in the passenger seat, decorating the journey with clever justifications. You think you're in control, but really, you're replaying an old script your mind wrote long ago. That's not a mistake. It's not a flaw in character. It's a survival mechanism, the way the mind learned to protect you from fear, by giving you stories easier to believe than the truth. But the truth, however hard to swallow, is the only door to freedom. Because when you are brave enough to pause, look deeply into your fear, and ask, does this feeling really come from the present? Or is it an old reflex being triggered? In that moment, you take the wheel from your own emotions, and that this is the first step of true Stoic thinking, not letting fear define your path. Emotions are humanity's ancient inheritance. Fast, primal, designed to protect you from danger. They arrive before reason, like underground rivers rushing beneath the surface of consciousness. And when you live your whole life following these currents, you no longer choose, you only react, mirroring every impulse like a programmed machine. Most people live according to the weather of their inner world. Sunny today because they're happy. Rainy tomorrow because they're sad. They assume the intensity of feeling proves truth. If it's strong, it must be important. If it hurts, it must be real. If it excites, it must be undeniable. But clarity does not operate that way. Insight is not hearing every inner noise. It's the ability to listen without being led. A clear mind allows emotions to speak without handing over the keys. It listens and waits. It does not rush to confirm every impulse as truth. When you practice deliberate thinking, you learn to distinguish between genuine needs and emotional addictions, between what truly nurtures you and what is only familiar, safe, and bland. That awareness changes the way you live. You no longer constantly justify emotional outbursts. You don't instantly react to every impulse. You begin to question the origin of the feeling before acting on it. This process demands patience. You learn to acknowledge feelings, joy, and fear alike without letting them command you. You calm your mind, give thought time to emerge, and then ask, if this emotion weren't blinding me, what else would I see? Sometimes the answer hurts. What we call love may just be a familiar habit. What we label ambition might be a reflection of comparison. What feels urgent is sometimes just fear trying to escape from ourselves. But understanding this doesn't make you cold or unfeeling. On the contrary, it's the path to true freedom, the freedom to feel without being controlled, to listen without being compelled to act immediately. Emotions are not the enemy. They are data, signals. They give you information about your inner state, but they don't replace sound judgment. Like a spark, they can ignite a warm fire or set the entire house ablaze. The difference lies in whether you let the flame erupt immediately or pause to consider what you truly value before lighting it again. So, the next time an urge hits intense, urgent, confident in its intuition, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this truly my need, or just a habit nurtured by fear? That moment of stillness between feeling and action is where you can change the course of your life. When you learn to master these moments, your life transforms from a series of reactions into a deliberate journey where emotions guide, but reason decides the direction. True clarity doesn't come from trying to know everything. It comes from pausing, a quiet beat between feeling and doing. In that fragile pause, you can choose your response. Instead of letting your emotions choose for you, you can still feel fear, but instead of letting it drive, you sit beside it and watch it pass. You may still be drawn to something or someone, but this time, you stop to ask, what is truly attracting me? Is this real, or just emptiness looking to be filled? And gradually, through each of these moments, you begin to see the difference between desire and desperation, between true intuition and impulses disguised as emotion. When this awareness comes, it may feel like you've lost something. In reality, you haven't lost anything. You are simply stepping away from the illusion that feelings always speak truth. You are growing beyond the naive belief that if I feel it, it must be right. That sense of loss is the first sign of spiritual maturity. You are learning to stand outside the waves of emotion rather than being swept away by them. Many will say, trust your intuition. And yes, sometimes intuition is the voice of deep inner wisdom. But not always. Sometimes what you call intuition is just an old memory wearing the mask of insight. Sometimes a gut feeling is anxiety dressed up as clarity. That's why, to truly understand yourself, you need more than emotion. You need philosophy. You need stillness. You need a solid inner framework, a foundation that allows feelings to pass through without dragging you along. With that foundation, you're no longer carried away by every wave. You become someone who can feel deeply, yet act with clarity. This is the spirit of Stoic wisdom, not repressing emotions, but facing them directly, listening to them, and choosing not to be ruled by them. A Stoic does not deny emotions. They simply don't let emotions steer their ship into a storm. They practice the art of pausing, separating the feeling from the story the mind is weaving. And so, when they act, they are guided not by fear or desire, but by purpose. This clarity doesn't come in a single moment of enlightenment. It's the result of countless pauses and self-inquiries. Is this real? Or is it just something familiar I haven't dared to let go? The more you question, the more power you regain. Not the power to control others, but the power to anchor yourself amid chaos. A power that allows you to move through emotional storms without being swept away. And then, one day, you realize clarity is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to see clearly, even when emotions are raging. Because you have learned what most people never do, True peace does not come from controlling emotions. It comes from not letting emotions control you. Emotions are real, but that doesn't mean they are always right. They are like waves. They can drown you if you cling to them, or carry you forward if you know how to ride them. Until you learn to feel without being swept away, you will live, reaction dancing to someone else's rhythm instead of your own. But once you learn to pause, once you stop chasing the first feeling that arises, everything begins to change. You are no longer a victim of what you feel. You become the one who chooses how to respond, rather than simply reacting. In that moment, you become steady, almost untouchable. You walk with calm and clarity, not because it feels good, but because it is right. And it is precisely that subtle difference between feeling good and living rightly that separates a reactive life from a purposeful one. That is where chaotic emotions are transformed into meaningful action, where you no longer need to control the world, only yourself. Over time, each choice you make from that stillness becomes not just wiser, but imbued with a sense of sacredness, because it comes from wisdom, not fear. Most people think they are being careful when they wait. They believe that if they delay a little longer, wait until everything is clear, the decision will be perfect. But they fail to realize that what they are waiting for is not clarity, it's absolute certainty, which never exists in real life. You can hear it in what they say. I just need a little more time. Let me be sure and then I'll start. But behind these words is not wisdom. It's fear, dressed in logic. Fear whispers, don't do anything until the path is completely safe. And so, they never go anywhere. Because true clarity never appears before you step forward. It only reveals itself along the way. You will never see every possibility, and that's a good thing. Life is not designed for perfect calculation, but for learning to trust yourself, the timing, and the process. If you wait for certainty, you will lose your life in the waiting. But if you dare to act while still afraid, you will find peace amid the unknown. Clarity does not come from eliminating emotion, it comes from seeing through it. Not from feeling less, but from feeling without being swayed. Not from fearing less, but from moving forward despite fear. And in that moment, you become a different person. Stronger, steadier, freer. No longer carried by emotions, but mastering your own mind. Hesitation may look like caution, but in truth, it's a subtle form of avoidance. It's how the mind postpones facing responsibility by wearing the cloak of wisdom. You tell yourself you're just waiting for the right moment, that you're not ready yet. But deep down, you're avoiding the discomfort that comes with growth. The truth is, no one is ever truly ready for the big things in life. No one is ready for conversations that make the heart tremble. No one is ready for turning points that change their path. No one is ready for the pain of personal development. The absolute readiness you're waiting for is just an illusion your mind creates to delay action. It's a sweet trap. You think you're buying yourself more time, but in reality, you're trading real progress for a temporary sense of safety. And the danger is this: the longer you wait, the more your mind begins to conjure its own ghosts. The space between now and someday quickly fills with fear. You start imagining a series of worst-case scenarios. What if I fail? What if others judge me? What if I'm not good enough? Each small, repeated thought becomes an invisible chain binding you. You're no longer simply waiting for the right moment. You're stuck in your own loop of hesitation. You overanalyze, overcalculate, and in the end, do nothing at all. So your life begins to shrink, not because the outside world has gotten smaller, but because your mind has built walls too high. The philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Stoics understand this better than anyone. They know the mind can be both a refuge and a prison, that the pain we imagine is often deeper, fiercer, and longer lasting than actual pain. Because real pain, when it comes, always has an end point. But the pain in the mind, left unchecked, can last forever. That's why Stoics don't wait to be ready. They act even when fear is still present. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it. They choose to step forward while the mind still trembles, because they know that action creates clarity, while delay only produces illusion. So next time you hear yourself say, "I'm not ready," pause and ask, "Am I really not ready? Or am I just avoiding the uncomfortable?" Because sometimes life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It only waits for you to be brave enough to start. Those who constantly crave certainty often fail to realize that certainty never comes before action. They think that if they just wait a little longer, if they wait until everything is perfect, fear will vanish, the path will become clear, and they'll know exactly what to do. But they are mistaken. Life does not work that way. Clarity is not a reward for waiting. It is the result of daring to act. When you embark on the journey, even uncertain, even afraid, each step you take dissolves the fog of doubt. Motion itself is the light that guides you, not the perfect preparation you imagine. Stoics understand this clearly. They do not act recklessly, but with respect for time and experience. They know that only by engaging with life, facing discomfort, and accepting risk does one gain wisdom. Every step, every mistake, every encounter with reality is a mirror reflecting lessons about oneself. Clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from real feedback. When you act, you see what works and what doesn't. You feel the difference between real fear and mental resistance. It is through this process that deep understanding gradually forms, not from theory, but from living experience. To step into that uncertain space requires courage, not the loud, showy kind, but quiet courage. The kind that says, "I may not know everything, but I know enough to begin." That shift in mindset transforms a person from a mere observer into someone truly living their journey. Yet unfortunately, many remain trapped by the need to know for sure. They believe that without guarantees, they cannot act. In truth, they are not protecting themselves. They are imprisoning themselves in a cage of fear. They turn their potential into an unsolvable problem rather than a path to explore. The need for certainty is a motivation killer. It suffocates desire and snuffs out every spark of inspiration. You begin doubting your instincts, questioning timing, seeking validation from others, hoping someone will allow you to take the next step. But the truth is, no one can grant that permission. Only you, the one who dares to act, even when not ready, can open the door to freedom. What you're truly seeking, clarity, confidence, peace in choice, doesn't come from the eyes or praise of others. It is not granted from the outside. It only arises when you step forward yourself, even when the path ahead is still unclear. True clarity does not come from others' approval, but from the decision to act while accepting the possibility of mistakes. This is not recklessness. It is real maturity, the ability to take responsibility for your direction regardless of outcome. Inner strength is not forged from perfect decisions. It is formed from the willingness to face the consequences of your choices, from being able to say to yourself, "This is the path I choose. Whatever happens, I will stand firm and learn from it." This is the spirit of the Stoic, not waiting for the world to make sense, but bringing your own meaning to it. They understand that you do not need every answer to begin. You don't need a detailed map, and you don't need to eliminate every fear. The only requirement is honesty, with yourself, recognizing what is truly holding you back. Is it wisdom or just fear in disguise? Are you reflecting deeply or merely postponing? The longer you wait for the right moment, the more difficult action becomes. The decisions you haven't made start to grow in your mind like a shadow, and the more hesitation nurtures it, the heavier and darker it becomes. But when you act, even a small, uncertain step, that shadow immediately loses its power. You break the loop of fear. You stop fueling. These are questions that never have answers. In theory, they can only be understood through lived experience. It is precisely this movement, this action, that changes everything. Because when you start to act, you begin to trust yourself, not because you know everything, but because you are no longer afraid of being wrong. This is the foundation of inner strength, not perfection, but the ability to move forward even when nothing is guaranteed. Not certainty, but growth in every step you take. Even if you fail, even if the outcome is not what you hoped for, the act itself holds value. Because you have lived honestly with yourself, acting from understanding and consistency, not from fear. And in each of these experiences, difficult, imperfect, you learn something no book or philosophy can teach. Life is not about finding the perfect answer. It is about engaging fully in the uncertain process itself. That is what is truly alive, truly meaningful, and truly yours. There is a truth few want to admit. Reality, though imperfect, is always more valuable than 1,000 perfect scenarios imagined in your head. You can sit there, waiting until everything is clear, until every doubt in your heart disappears, but that absolute certainty never comes. Clarity is not a pleasant feeling. It is an inner state, a way of being. It says, I will not wait to be ready. I will be ready by starting to move. It does not demand absolute correctness. It demands willingness to show up, to try, to adjust, and to learn. And it is this willingness, not knowledge, that forms the foundation for everything in life to have meaning. Those who wait for all the answers before acting will forever remain in place. Meanwhile, those who dare to move forward in ambiguity and imperfection are building a life that is truly alive, clear, and worth experiencing. We live in what is called the information age. Ironically, information often leaves us more confused than enlightened. There is no shortage of advice, strategies, life philosophies, self-development lessons, podcasts, videos, and countless secrets to happiness. Scroll long enough, and you'll see countless voices telling you how to live, how to love, how to succeed, how to let go. And so you listen, you read, you save. It feels like progress. But when the day ends, your head is full of theory, and your heart remains just as lost as before. Because clarity does not come from knowing more. It comes from knowing less. It is not about accumulating more information, but about clearing the noise to hear your true voice again. The reality is, most information today is not created to help you understand yourself better. It is designed to keep you scrolling, keep you watching, keep you doubting yourself. It plays on insecurities, fear of missing out, and the desire to feel productive simply by learning something new. But consuming information is not growth. If what you take in does not lead to action, it is merely noise disguised as knowledge. At first, you think you are getting smarter, more enlightened, but gradually, that noise dulls your instincts. You begin doubting your own intuition. Because out there are too many confident voices, persuasive voices. And little by little, you hand over your internal compass to people who don't even know what your life map looks like. Wisdom is not born in the storm of opinions, it arises in silence. It comes when you pause, listening to the space between thoughts, where your true intelligence can emerge. Yet we fear that silence. We fill it with sound, podcasts, videos, social media, because we fear that if we stop, we'll fall behind. But behind whom? Compared to what? Who set this race? In truth, constantly seeking more information is often not about wanting to learn, but about fearing decision-making. We tell ourselves, it's not enough yet. I'm not ready. I need a bit more data. But these are just excuses wrapped in logic. If what you learn does not change how you act, it is not knowledge, it is procrastination disguised as intelligence. And the scariest part is that noise becomes normal. We live in it, breathe it, until silence itself starts to scare us. We forget how to listen to ourselves because we are too used to hearing what others say we should be, do, or become. But in the moment you dare to turn everything off, podcasts, screens, even the urge to just learn a little more, you begin to feel real clarity. Not from the outside, but from within. Not from certainty, but from being fully present with yourself. Perhaps you have experienced that moment sitting alone, your mind foggy, your hand unconsciously reaching for the phone. Not because you need it, but because you don't want to be alone with yourself. A fleeting emptiness, confusion, or sadness, and you open a new tab, scroll, search for something to fill the gap inside. You are not seeking understanding, you are seeking escape. Not healing, but temporary distraction from present discomfort. But that is not learning. That is avoidance disguised as self-improvement. Carl Jung once said, "Man will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing his own soul." And in this era of endless information, escaping has never been easier. We rationalize that we are improving ourselves, when in reality, we are repeating a vicious cycle. Read, watch, listen, save, share, without letting anything truly touch or change us internally. You can collect 1,000 philosophies, 100 inspirational quotes, but it means nothing if you do not live them. Because transformation does not come from knowing. It comes from internalizing, not from exposure, but from absorption. And to absorb, you need space, a place of silence, where you dare to face yourself without hiding. You need honesty not with the world, but with your own inner self. Not everything you read is worth keeping. Not every word is worth letting into your mind. Not every idea deserves to be nurtured. You need to learn how to filter ruthlessly, yet necessarily, just as you would never let a stranger into your home and allow them to rearrange your belongings. You should not let random content online infiltrate and shape your emotions, beliefs, or values. Every post, every video, every story you consume has the potential to change you, quietly, gradually, piece by piece. A harmless video can make you doubt yourself. An inspirational article can plant values that are not truly yours. A seemingly helpful piece of advice can steer you away from what you know to be right. And that is why discipline is more important than intellect. It's easy to absorb more information, but extremely difficult to discern what deserves your attention. The Stoics understood this clearly thousands of years ago. They saw the mind as a fortress, to be guarded not only against external enemies, but also against internal chaos. Because chaos doesn't arrive all at once, it seeps in, day by day, slowly eroding who we are, piece by piece. One video, one thought, one small habit. And gradually, you no longer know who you are, or what you truly believe. So start asking different questions. Does this move me forward? Does this make me wiser? Does this align with the values I live by? If the answer is no, let it go. Not everything worth hearing is worth keeping. Not everything that attracts you is helpful. And not every voice deserves your response. True wisdom is never loud. It is quiet. It is simple. And only when you are still enough to listen can you truly hear it. Few realize this. Peace does not come running to you amid chaos. It is the reward for those patient enough to return within themselves. Not by closing off the world, but by learning to choose what is worthy of entering. True openness does not mean letting every voice invade your mind. It means opening up to the truth and having the courage to discard everything else. Because if your mind is constantly being pulled in 10 different directions, How can you hear the voice of your intuition? If everyone tells you a different path, how do you know which is truly yours? And if every moment is filled with sound, images, and content, where's the space to hear your own heart? Maturity does not come from absorbing infinite opinions, but from knowing when to stop and say, enough. Now it's time to listen to myself. This is not arrogance. It is trust. Trust that you already have the answers within. You don't need hundreds of pieces of advice to make the right decision. You need presence, focus, and space. Clarity is not born from accumulating information. It grows from stillness. Only when the world is quiet can your inner wisdom speak. If you truly want to live a life that reflects your values, beliefs, and strength, to protect that space as sacred. It is not a luxury. It is the foundation for every decision. The place where the person you are becoming takes shape. At first glance, clarity may seem like an abstract concept of the mind, but in reality, it begins with the physical space around you. You can try journaling, meditating, reading, or seeking inner silence. But if your environment is chaotic, your mind will reflect it. Your desk is not just a place for your laptop. It is a mirror of your inner state. Your phone is not just a tool. It is a doorway to countless influences. And your living space is the container of your spirit. If it is filled with noise, clutter, and distractions, finding a quiet thought becomes nearly impossible. In a way, the outer world always reflects your inner world. So look around honestly. Are papers scattered everywhere? Do you have dozens of tabs open that you haven't touched in days? Are incomplete ideas lying across your phone and notebooks? This is not just physical clutter, it is a disruption in the flow of your spirit. Every unfinished task is a tether pulling you backward. Every notification is a leak of energy. Every reminder of things left undone is a small crack in your focus. And day by day, these cracks accumulate, silently draining your vitality until you feel exhausted without knowing why. Not because you are lazy, not because you lack willpower, but because your environment is designed to wear you down. Amid that chaos, you still try to think about the future, relationships, or the meaning of life. But how can a brain function clearly in a storm of noise? You wouldn't plan a strategy in a noisy bar. You wouldn't write your will in the middle of an earthquake. So why try to find clarity when the world around you is so chaotic? Start with the smallest things. Clean your space and your mind will clear. Turn off some noise and you'll hear your heart speak. Let go of a few unnecessary things and you'll reclaim the peace you thought was lost. Because ultimately, clarity never comes from the outside. It has always been inside you, waiting for the world to be quiet enough for it to speak. In the middle of the noisy storm, rebuild the world within yourself. Today, people are still trying to live a peaceful life. They strive to build their existence amid the world. The noise of social media, crowded rooms, and the constant tangle of thoughts. They are not lacking the capacity for clarity, but they are trying to cultivate a serene garden in a city full of smoke and dust, and then wonder why nothing grows. Clarity cannot exist in a chaotic environment. Just as a small flame cannot burn when the wind blows from all directions, the mind cannot be clear when everything around it pulls it in hundreds of directions. The Stoics understood this long ago. They did not seek silence by running away from the world, but by protecting their own mental space. No need to leave the city, live in an empty house, or cut off all connections. All you need is to take responsibility for the atmosphere surrounding your mind. Notice what you allow into your energy space. Which sounds are occupying your ears every day? Which lights are flashing endlessly in your sight? Which conversations are you overhearing without intention? And more importantly, what energy remains in your space that you never consciously invited? Clarity does not require perfection. It requires intention. A tidy room, a quiet space, a clean desk, or a stretch of time undisturbed. These are not just conveniences, they are tangible expressions of mental self-respect. When your surroundings become clean, not just visually, but energetically, you begin to notice the difference between what truly matters and what merely demands your immediate attention. You see more clearly what pulls you away and what you choose to move toward. A form of peace returns, not dead silence, but living stillness. It is the state when mind and environment begin to resonate together. You no longer have to struggle with the world to find balance, because the small world around you becomes a support for yourself. Carl Jung once said, "People who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken." And to truly look within, you must stop letting the outside world tug at your sleeve. The great effort, soul, only opens in peace. And peace does not come by chance, it comes from deliberate preparation. No grand changes are needed. It begins with small actions carrying great energy. Making your bed in the morning is not just tidying up, it is a declaration that you are ready to start the day with order. Closing unnecessary tabs is not just cleaning up, it is restoring focus. Placing your phone face down is not just courtesy, it is an act of self-respect and self-control. These small habits are not merely about neatness, they remove barriers between you and your deepest thoughts. Most people underestimate the power of space on the mind. They think chaos can only be managed by mental discipline, forgetting that the body is the gateway to the soul. When your eyes see disorder, your brain immediately prepares for stress. When you live amid clutter, your mind mirrors it like a dusty, blurred reflection. If you want to find peace, don't just look in your thoughts. Start by adjusting the space in front of you. When the outside is arranged, your inner world gradually settles. And in that stillness you hear the voice that has always been there, waiting for your return. Every notification ping makes a part of your mind jump into reaction as if facing an invisible threat. A small ping, yet enough to awaken the nervous system, keeping it in constant vigilance. We start the day not in calm, but in restlessness and fatigue. Not because something actual happened, but because we allowed ourselves to be surrounded by countless trivial signals. The human brain is not designed to process thousands of stimuli at once. When it is filled with noise, focus and depth gradually vanish. That is why sometimes simply tidying a room, taking a short walk, or turning off devices can make us feel lighter and clearer. There is no magic, only space, allowing the mind room to breathe. We were not born to live amid a storm of notifications, flashing screens, and endless news feeds. We were made to feel, to focus, to be present. But how can you appreciate the beauty of a moment if every second is ripped away by the phone's chime? Clarity does not come from adding more, it comes from reducing. Fewer distractions, less clutter, less noise, so the things that truly matter can speak clearly. But that clarity is not only about cleaning a room or turning off a device. It is also about energy boundaries, those invisible limits that protect your mind. Who are you allowing into your mental space? What are you listening to every day? How many conversations are you part of, even when you don't want to speak? And how often do you tolerate negativity out of fear of being impolite? Your environment is not just objects. It is people, sounds, emotions, and energies you allow to exist around you. Every time you tolerate something that drains you, you trade away your ability to hear your inner voice. Setting boundaries is not weakness, it is wisdom. A clean, balanced, and quiet space soothes not only the eyes, but also the mind. It signals honesty with yourself, that you are ready to stop letting life control you and start intentionally creating an environment where your best self can flourish. And you don't need to change the whole world to do it. Start small. Wipe down your desk. Turn off a notification you don't need. Say no to a meeting that doesn't nourish your soul. Spend 10 minutes in silence before starting your day. Those small actions, seemingly simple, carry astonishing power. They send a signal to your subconscious. I am serious about myself. I choose peace. And your mind responds. It gradually becomes quieter, sharper, and more attuned. The Stoics believed that the mind should not be controlled by circumstances, yet they also understood that self-mastery must be practiced. We must learn to return to what is essential, resist the allure of chaos, and choose stillness amid a noisy world. That discipline does not start when everything is perfect. It begins where you are, right now. Transform your space into a sacred place, not through grand rituals, but through respect. Respect your mind. Respect your peace. Respect clarity. Clarity does not appear on its own. It requires preparation, space made ready for it to enter. And if you don't create that space, it will not argue or shout. It will simply leave silently. Clarity begins where you choose to stand still. It's time to ask yourself a simple yet difficult question. Are you creating space to truly live, or are you just filling the gaps? Pause. Look around where you are. Your room, your work, your relationships, your habits. All of them speak about you, the choices you have made, and the things you continue to optimize without realizing it. Your surroundings are not just a backdrop, they are a mirror reflecting your intentions. If you want peace, your environment must carry the breath of peace. If you desire clarity, start by creating a place where clarity can reside. Clarity does not grow in chaos. It emerges in intentional stillness, in the gaps you deliberately protect. When you clear your external space, you also clear the noise within your mind. Your environment can become a silent ally on the path to awakening, or an invisible enemy leading you astray amid the noise. The problem is, most people do not truly know what they are pursuing. They say they want peace, yet live in cycles that never allow their minds to rest. They say they want freedom, yet rely on the approval of others. They say they want love, yet seek it in fleeting attention and hollow likes. They say they want meaning, yet every action moves toward busyness, as if pausing would make them vanish. We fail to realize that every choice, no matter how small, is a vote for what we truly prioritize. You may say you want peace, but if your actions nourish chaos, the truth is, you are optimizing for chaos. Life is not against you. It simply responds honestly to what you truly care about. If you are constantly drawn to comfort, perhaps you are optimizing for safety, not growth. If you are always seeking admiration, perhaps you are optimizing for recognition, not freedom. And if you keep repeating old patterns, you may still be loyal to an older version of yourself, a version that learned to survive, but never learned to thrive. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That is why many feel stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they have never paused to ask where they are truly heading. When you fail to set your own direction, life sets it for you. But life has no obligation to lead you to the highest place. It will only lead you to the most familiar. And the familiar is often a comfort zone, old habits, roads with the least risk, but also nothing new. The modern world makes this easier than ever. It surrounds you with endless choices, noise, and busyness, so that you never have the time to sit still and reset your own course. And then, you get carried away. Instead of choosing your path, you chase opportunities that seem attractive, but leave you feeling empty inside. You strive for achievements to impress people you may not even respect. You move, you act, yet drift further from yourself. This is the crossroads where many stumble not because they are weak, but because clarity demands absolute honesty. And honesty is the hardest when you have built your life on avoiding it. When you say you want peace, but remain in environments that feed anxiety, something inside you resists. When you say you want love but choose fleeting attention, something inside you is hurt. That discomfort is not failure, it is truth knocking at your door. It is a reminder from the deepest part of you. The map you are following no longer leads to where you want to go. Clarity does not require perfection, it only requires specificity. Ask yourself, what am I optimizing for? And then let every action, every space, every small decision reflect that answer. Clarity does not arrive on its own. It only appears when you have the courage to make room for it. What is your true direction? Pause for a moment and ask yourself, where do you truly want your life to go? Not just in quiet reflection, but in every small action you take each day. If you say you want freedom, why are your habits built around dependence? If you say you want strength, why are your boundaries drawn with fear, with pleas for others to understand you? If you say you long to live authentically, then why do you stay silent just to keep appearances calm? This is not a judgment. It is an invitation to look deeper within yourself, to stop skimming the surface and start being honest with your core. A meaningful life doesn't begin with what you want, but with what you protect. You must clearly name the values you live by and let them guide every choice, especially in your hardest moments. This is the spirit of clarity, not just understanding with your mind, but living it through your actions. You must face the trade-offs you are willing to accept. You must understand that you cannot serve two masters at once, comfort and growth. You cannot seek everyone's approval and still live true to yourself without feeling torn apart. Sooner or later, a choice must be made. And that choice will come at a cost, through loneliness, fear, or the loss of some familiar comfort. But it is that cost that makes you stronger. When you know what matters most, your mind gradually becomes clear, like still water. The excess falls away on its own. You are no longer pulled by every new opinion, every passing trend, every judgmental gaze. You stop trying to be liked and choose instead to live deliberately, clearly, calmly, unapologetically as yourself. That is when you start designing your life around inner guidance rather than external noise. And from there, the quality of every decision changes completely. You no longer ask, what should I do now? Instead you ask, does this bring me closer to the person I want to become? That question, simple yet powerful, breaks old habits. It prevents you from betraying yourself for temporary comfort. It keeps you steady when temptation knocks. And it preserves clarity when everything around you grows dim. When clarity takes root within, life doesn't become easier, but it becomes simpler. You will still face hardships, failures, and people who hurt you, but you will no longer lose your way, because even when the path ahead is uncertain, your inner direction remains clear. You know where you are headed. You know why you chose that path. And that alone changes the way you stand in the world. For when you live with clarity, you carry a quiet strength that the world cannot take away, a coherence from within, a sense that no matter how the wind shifts, you remain grounded in the direction you have chosen. It is not just confidence, it is peace, built on the foundation of truths you dare to face. Don't wait for life to choose for you. The Stoics held a simple but powerful belief: to live in accordance with nature, meaning to live in alignment with reason and your truest values. They do not chase fleeting desires, nor get swept away by every passing emotion. They do not seek temporary highs, momentary excitement that vanishes quickly. What they pursue is the endurance of the soul virtue, self-mastery, and inner strength honed through deliberate choices. This does not make them perfect. It simply means they choose to live with direction, to act according to a compass tested by experience, by stumbles and awakenings. They know what they are moving toward. So even in the most chaotic, uncertain moments, they can walk steadily because every step is meaningful. And you? In a world constantly selling you thousands of versions of success, fame, money, admiration, glittering outward things that are empty inside. Do you truly know what makes life meaningful for you? Defining your purpose is not a luxury for the wise. It is the only light that guides you through the storm of comparison, noise, and disorientation. It is the only way to avoid trading your life for what does not belong to you. To do this, you must learn to let go. Not because those things are wrong, but because they no longer align with your path. Alignment matters more than abundance. Life is not a race to have everything. It is a journey to learn how to choose and to be honest with yourself. Pause for a moment and ask, what am I optimizing for each day? When you speak, when you act, when you commit, what is really behind it? Fear of being left behind, or trust in your own path? If you don't yet have the answer, don't worry. Clarity does not arrive with shouting. It does not appear in the noise. It comes from stillness, from patiently peeling away the layers of the world's clamor, until you finally hear the small, honest voice within. And when it appears, you will recognize it immediately. It is neither loud nor dramatic, but it carries a calm certainty that frees you from needing to prove anything, frees you from overexertion. That is when you stop trying to be everything and start truly becoming something. Not fast, not rushed, but steady, moving in a single meaningful direction. Yet a silent enemy waits along the way: hesitation. It doesn't feel like fear because it isn't loud. It wears the mask of wisdom, of patience, of openness. People tell you to stay open, to keep every option available, not to rush your decisions. Sometimes that's true. But if you live that way forever, it becomes a form of avoidance, cleverly disguised as reason. Not choosing gives a false sense of safety, because if you haven't chosen, you cannot be wrong. But in truth, hesitation is just fear of failure spoken in a gentler tone. You tell yourself you are waiting for the right moment, but deep down, you are simply waiting for life to decide for you. You wait for a clear sign, a perfect push from the outside, someone to show up and do the hard thing you've been avoiding all along. But life doesn't work that way. It rewards commitment, not waiting. It opens the path for those who move, not for those who stand still hoping. Those who hesitate too long gradually forget that stillness and delay are not the same thing. Standing still is not peace. It is the slow erosion of courage. Bit by bit, you lose faith in yourself. You stop daring to choose, even in small things. And eventually, you become a person who waits. Waiting for certainty, waiting for confirmation, waiting for an absolute sense of safety, a thing that will never come. Clarity does not come from drifting. It comes when you choose a direction, take the step, and learn to face the results with courage. A real mistake teaches you far more than 1,000 hours of mental calculation ever could. But we fear being wrong, because being wrong makes us doubt ourselves, wounds our ego. Yet there is something we often forget. Hesitation carries a cost too. The cost of never knowing how far you could go, simply because you never dared to take the first step. Perhaps your true path has never been outside. It is not hidden in bright lights, in praise or achievements. It exists in the moment you pause and listen to the small but persistent voice inside the voice you have silenced for far too long. Your true path is not a pre-laid road. It is something you draw each day, with every choice, every thought, every action guided by your inner clarity. And when you dare to walk that path even slowly, even imperfectly, you are living true to yourself. That is freedom. That is strength. That is your true direction. Don't rush away. This is only part 1 of the journey to reclaim yourself. In part 2, we will explore how to recognize the path that truly belongs to you, and how to maintain your stance when the world tries to pull you in another direction. If this message resonates with something inside you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss part 2 of this journey. Thank you for being present. See you in the next video, where we will go even deeper into mastering the mind and living a life aligned with your true path.